Earlier, somebody asked me, they said, when are we going to have Palestinian Sunday? I thought we'd all go to jail. So that will never happen. But I'm happy and I'm excited to tell you today that I was talking with Amir. Amir Ghali is a wonderful friend, a heart, an amazing heart. Come on up here, Amir, if you would. Welcome him. This weekend I love the idea of kind of having a theme weekend. I think our church does that a lot. And the next theme weekend we're going to have is July 4th, because that's on a Saturday. July 5th will be on a Sunday. So already plan right now for your ridiculous outfits you're going to wear for, as we celebrate our 250th year, anniversary or celebration of our country. Well, when I was talking to Amir, because we're equal opportunity disciples, I was like, so I want you to do a devotional on that Sunday morning. He's like, all right, I can do that. And so we talked about it, and I gave him that free rein to do whatever he wants to, because I trust him. He is filled with the Holy Spirit. And then he started working on it, and I asked him, how long do you have? How long is it going to be? He's like 25, 30 minutes. And I said, Amir, if I do a sermon after you give a 25-minute devotional, I said, Justin Davis will kill me. So that we can't do that. But long story short, he's going to deliver a message. It's hard to speak up here. It really is. So give him that grace, give him that love, and he's got a great message for us.
Muchas gracias, Jerry. Bienvenidos a One Christian Church. El mensaje del día de hoy va a ser todo en español. I hope everyone learned Spanish beforehand. ¿Están listos? No?
You've been given a week, so you should have known by now.
No, I'm just messing with you. It's not in Spanish. It's going to be in English. And before that, we have a question for Jerry that I'm going to read, because these questions are hard. So, and while I'm opening this, I wanted to give a big shout out to Brad and Spencer, because if you're reading those captions, they were able to do that. So if you're struggling to hear, we're working on having more options to include everyone. So big shout out to them. Sorry, I'm a little bit nervous and my hands are pretty shaky, but it's going to go away once I tell you guys the story of when Becky and Mark almost kidnapped me. So, good morning, Pastor Jerry. Why did God in the Old Testament require animal sacrifices for the forgiveness of sin? And do you think we are at the end of the age and the return of Jesus will happen soon? If so, why? Want to come help us answer that question? I can help you with the second part of that question.
You said you were going to try it, so.
I think you're more professional.
I couldn't. I didn't really catch this.
I'll let you do it.
Good morning, Pastor Jerry. They're so polite, aren't they?
Yeah.
Why did God in the Old Testament require animal sacrifices for the forgiveness of sins? And then part two.
Yeah.
Do you think that we are at the end of the age or the return of Jesus will happen soon? If so, why? Yeah, well, that's a great question. In Hebrews 9, it says, without the shedding of blood, there can be no forgiveness of sins. But it still begs the question, and that's a great question, actually, because I thought the same way, too. Like, I know God loves animals, and God loves all creation. Why would he require animal sacrifices? In fact, actually, both of these questions, I can answer them from the same origin. In the original sin in the Garden of Eden, what happened? After Christ, or after God the Father, had a relationship with Adam and Eve, and they fell through deception. They had community. They had all they wanted. They lived in harmony with Christ. They had dominion over everything. And so there was still deception in there. And so when that deception happened, they found themselves naked. And so when they found themselves naked, they ran and they hid. You guys remember this, right? This is Genesis 3. Well, when God comes walking looking for them, he calls out to them. And Adam answers and he says, well, I hid because I was naked. And then he says, how did you know? Who told you you were naked? Have you eaten from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil? You know this, right? Okay. So then he saw they covered themselves in fig leaves. Well, what did God do then? He covered them in animal fur. So because he covered them in animal fur, he realized that to cover your true nakedness, there needs to be a sacrifice. And so the first sacrifice actually happened by God to cover up original sin, or to begin to cover original sin. And so that makes sense. So that's why you still use blood sacrifices through animals, is actually it goes back to original, what God did for Adam and Eve. And then the second part is kind of similar. Do you think we are at the end of the age and the return of Jesus will happen soon? You know, every pastor is always going to say yes to this, and I do believe we are there. And the reason why I do believe, and I'm not one of those who's going to tell you it's going to happen on July 13th at 2 p.m. I'm not crazy, right? This is not a cult. But here's what I can tell you. I can warn you on this. We are going to be more technologically advanced now and 10 years from now than we have in the last 6,000 years. So hear what I'm saying again. We will reach more technological advances in the next 10 years than we have since the creation of man. Because of that, what happened? What started original sin? Original sin was Adam and Eve. They wanted knowledge of things they didn't know. Well, I was at the house one time recently, and Rose, who's not here right now, she had prom last night. She was doing her homework, and she asked me a question of history, and I'm helping her answer her questions, and then I'm like, Rose, this is not my homework. This is your homework. Figure it out. And you know what she did? She got on ChatGPT. And right then and there, in my spirit, I felt something awkward and move. I thought, now what are we doing? We are turning not to God, not to ourselves. Now we are turning to a different entity for information. It goes back to the Garden of Eden. And what happened? It was the devastation of humankind. We are doing that more than ever. And pretty soon, AI, that technology that sounds wonderful and great, I believe it's got the heart of a demonic spirit in it, and it will. And these next 10 years, these advancements, it's going to come out as wonderful. There's going to be a cure for this, a cure for that. We've solved this problem. AI is going to begin to think on its own exponentially. But then there's going to come to a point where we begin to not look to ourselves and not look to God. We're going to chase after artificial intelligence for the answers. And it'll take us down a route that will be unsustainable.
Yeah, that was wonderful. I'm glad Jerry came and answered it. My answer would have not looked anything like that. So thank you, Jerry. And, well, we're celebrating Cinco de Mayo. And how many of you know the history of Cinco de Mayo? Not a lot of people. And don't blame yourself. In Mexico, people don't really celebrate it. So it's more of an American holiday. But I want to ask Frankie to come up here and help me. He's going to teach us some history, and then we're going to read some stuff in the Bible, and you'll see why, and it'll make sense all in a minute. So, Frankie.
Woo! How we doing, church? How we doing? Yeah, good morning, good morning. Let's give grace to God. Yes. All right, guys, so I'm going to give you guys a quick brief. I'm the opening act. You guys didn't know? A quick brief on the Cinco de Mayo. So Cinco de Mayo began way back then, 1862, right? What was happening here in America during that time? Civil War, right? So the French, Spain, and the British, right? They were trying to collect money from Mexico because Mexico owed them a lot of money, right? Mexico said, you know what? No, I'm not going to pay you back. So they all went to Mexico. The Spain and British say, okay, we settled our debt with you. You guys are good to go. The French said, you're going to pay us. So the French, they had to deal with the Confederate Army. Hey, give us cotton. We'll give you guns, bullets, all that stuff. We'll come from the south. We'll help you guys out, right? So the French, they set up base camp right there in Puebla. It's probably about 100 kilometers east from the capital of Mexico. So they set up camp, and they're like, you know what? We're going to take over Mexico. We're going to set up from the south, so we go up north and help the Confederate, right? So the Mexican army was a small little army, saying, no, we're going to hold our ground. We're going to fight these guys. And they won, right? That little battle lasted about 3 hours. They started at 9 a.m., hence what happened at 9 a.m. 2,000 years ago. Right, so the French, they had a lot of losses. The Mexican, they beat the French. But why is that important? That little battle, why is it important? I'm glad you asked that question. All right. Well, it's important because it delayed the French up to a year from getting reinforcements up to the north for the Confederate Army, right? That gave the Union enough time to beat the South with all these little battles, and that's how they beat the South, and that's how the Union won. So that battle, Cinco de Mayo, is very important for us here in America, because if it wasn't for that battle, they would have supported the South, and guess what? That's history. All right. All right, guys. Yep. You want me to get into Gideon? Yeah. All right. So I'm going to get into Gideon real quick. All right. So I'm going to pitch this a little different. All right. All my military people out there, you guys will understand this. Some of you, not Air Force guys. All right. So in the military, right, when you're out there looking for the enemy or something like that, there's reports that we have to send up, right? So there's a report that we call is a salute report. My Army guys, where are you guys at? You guys know that? Salute report, right? A salute report, what it stands for, Army has all kinds of acronyms, right? Salute is size, activity, location, the uniform, the time, date, and the equipment, okay? So Gideon, I'm going to apply that to the Gideon story, okay? Let me turn my notes real quick. Man, it's not easy up here, Jerry. It's not easy. I know, man. Can I get a Jesus when I said thank you? Thank you. One more. Thank you. Yes, yes. All right, guys. So the story of Gideon starts in Judges chapter 6 to 8. All right. So the size. The opposing force consisted of approximately 135,000 combined Midianites, Amalekites, and the eastern tribal warriors. Gideon recruited 32,000 men. But listen what God told Gideon. He's in Judges chapter 7, 2. The Lord said to Gideon, you have too many warriors with you. If I let you, all of you fight, well, it's easier here. Midianites into their hands, or Israel will boast against me. My own strength has saved me. Okay? So what does that mean? What does that mean? I got all these numbers against that army. Yeah, I did it on my own, right? God's going to say, nope, you're not going to do it on your own because that's too many people. Reduce that, right? Reduce that amount of numbers. So the activity, so it all started back many generations. The Amalekites conducted unprovoked attacks targeting Israel, weakest populations, raiding their villages. So they're going at it to this day. You know, they're going back and forth, fighting. The location was at southern Canaan by the valley of Jezreel, close to the town of Ophrah, west of the Jordan River. The uniform, Midianites, Amalekites, and eastern tribal warriors against Gideon and Israel, and the outcome was determined by God. God decided you're going to win this battle, not you, because I'm going to reduce your army, to the lowest, because I don't want you to trust you. I want you to trust me. So the time and where it happened, the date, Gideon's battle took place around 1184 BC after Israel had endured 7 years of Midianite and Amalekite oppression. The equipment that they had, the Midianites and Amalekites, they were well equipped with swords and spears, while Gideon only showed up with torches, empty clay jars, and trumpets. That was their weapon of choice. So that's all I got, guys. Thank you so much. It's all yours.
Thank you, Frankie. That was great. Yeah, I feel like a soldier right now, man. But yeah, so if we keep reading that, God told him to not use that many soldiers. So reduce the army, right? And well, we can skip some of it. but basically started to take their army down all the way till they got to 300 men. So from 30,000 to only 300. And the Lord said to Gideon, with the 300 men that left, I will save you and give the Midianites into your hand. Let all the others go home. And, well, like Frankie just said, they blew their trumpets, right? They had trumpets, and they had these jars, and they had their torches. And they said, for the Lord and for Gideon. And the 100 men with him reached the edge of the camp, and at the beginning of the middle watch, just after they had changed the guard, they blew their trumpets and broke the jars that were in their hands. The three companies blew the trumpets and smashed the jars, grasping the torches in their left hands and holding in their right hands the trumpets that they were to blow. They shouted, a sword for the Lord and for Gideon. While each man held his position around the camp, all the Midianites ran, crying out as they fled. When the 300 trumpets sounded, the Lord caused the men throughout the camp to turn on each other with their swords. The army fled to Beth. I'm not going to say that tongue twister. That's too complicated. Well, I don't know many of you, but I'm from Mexico. So I'm from Tijuana, Mexico, and my first language is Spanish. And so it's hard. I'm nervous because I've never preached in English. So bear with me. I thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you. Hey, you're so nice. But yeah, I'm so grateful that Jerry let me give this message. And you might be wondering, like, what does Cinco de Mayo have to do with Gideon, right? Well, they have things in common. We can start with Mexico really had no business defeating the French, right? It was 4,000 men versus 6,500 French, well equipped, the best military power in the world. They just came from Napoleon in the 1820s, and they were led by Napoleon III, which was his nephew. So they had battle experience. They were great. They had a lot of knowledge when it comes to battle. And Mexico was not well prepared. It was not too long ago that the independence of Mexico happened. It's like 30, 40 years after that. So they're not the strongest military power whatsoever. But they had no business defeating the French, yet they did, right? And we all love an underdog story, like Gideon, right? They all came out victorious. And then Cinco de Mayo, Mexico came victorious. Or Rocky, that's a great movie, Karate Kid. David and Goliath, Rocky 4. We all love those stories, and it's great, right? It drives us to think that even if we have the short end on the stick, we can win, and we have the battle, right? It's just we need to push hard. We have to give it all our strength. We need to be strong, and we need to have motivation to get to the victory. But the story of Gideon is not really an underdog story. It teaches us something very different. And I like to believe that the Cinco de Mayo story has a similar aspect where faith is involved. So Mexico, despite them being very Catholic, they still worship God. They believe in Jesus. Whether they do it the right way, probably not, but they have faith. And when they're in a situation where you know you have the short end of the stick and you're going to go fight and you're probably going to go die, I'm sure we'll all go and cry out to the Lord, right? And it's like atheists, they start believing in God when they say the plane is going to fall, right? It's once you're faced with that people turn to seek the Lord. And what a worse situation than knowing that the best military power is coming to face you. I'd be terrified, right? So there's a story that I don't know how true it is, but I still say it anyway. Supposedly there was a bullet that was going towards the general, Ignacio Zaragoza, but he was in a church, and when they shot at him, the bullet hit a statue of Christ and stopped the bullet. So it's called Christ of the Bullet. So I don't know how true that is, but I like thinking that there was some faith involved in this battle. And for the story of Gideon, it's all about faith. it really is. And there's 3 points that the story of Gideon teaches us. So, I clicked the wrong button. So here's a picture of Battle of Puebla. I think it was made by Netflix. So the first point is the Lord glorifies himself through the weak. And what does this mean, right? Is it that if I'm skinny and I can't lift a lot and God's going to glorify it through me? Maybe, right? You don't know. But it's that through our weaknesses, we are strengthened by Christ. And he glorifies himself through that. So a clear example, Cinco de Mayo, underdog, right? Just coming out victorious from that battle is what God is able to do. Now, if we look at the story of Gideon, on Judges 6, says, "Pardon me, my Lord," Gideon replied, "but how can I save Israel? My clan is the weakest in Manasseh." Is that how you pronounce it? Manasseh, yes. "And I am the least in my family." So not only his clan is the weakest, but he is the smallest. He's the least. He considers himself that, who am I to be chosen by God and to fight this battle? But that's exactly what God wants. He doesn't want to take the strongest man because they're going to say, I did it on my own strength. I'm enough. I'm capable to do that. So he chooses the small. That's why he chose Israel. And it says in the Bible, it took them from the smallest to use him to glorify himself, to be his nation. Now, he didn't want Israel to believe they won on their own strength. So he wanted to make it unmistakable that it was his hand in the battle. Now, 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 27 to 29 says, "But God chooses the foolish things of the world to shame the wise. God chose the weak things of the world to shame the strong. God chose the lowly things of this world and the despised things and the things that are not to nullify the things that are, so that no one may boast before him." And what's foolish than seeing an incountable army? It says that there were so many, they looked like grains of sand. And he let go 30,000 men. That's foolish, right? No military power would say, I think we have too many men. Yeah. See, or all of our destroyers that we have in the Pacific, we don't need them. We can do this. Cut the army. We don't do that, right? We take pride on having the strongest military in the world, which it's great. But the best military tactic that we have is prayer. It's not about weapons, it's about prayer. And at the end of the day, the victory is declared by God. He chooses who wins. It's not up to us. We can fight as hard as we want. And if God doesn't want us to win, he's not going to let that happen. He's going to make a choice. And we need to have faith, and we need to let him be the one that makes those decisions. And this also gives us peace, because we don't have to be strong, right? How many of us have tried to hold all of our problems? Try to be the best parent, the best brother, the best husband, the best businessman, the best whatever in the world, right? Sometimes we feel like our family is falling apart. We're having issues. We're having problems with our kids. Or we're just having emotional problems or mental health issues. And we try to be strong on our own. And we think that we can do it by ourselves. But God tells us that we don't have to do it by ourselves. And a lot of churches out there talk about how we are made to be perfect, how we're designed, because we're image of God, we're perfect, and we're made for greatness, and we were meant to have this and do that and conquer the world and all of these things. And believe it or not, I heard a pastor once said that everyone should have a business. Everyone should be a business owner. Like, okay, who's going to run the businesses, right? If everyone's a business owner, that doesn't make sense. Yeah, you need production people. Yeah. So it was ridiculous. And this whole idea of what God can do for me, I want to be successful and I want to be rich, and God made me his son, so I deserve to be rich and be this. And that's a wrong idea. And I think, honestly, that's a demonic idea, because it's not about what God can do for us, but it's about what can we do for God. And the only thing we could do is give him our praise or worship or time. commit to him. There's nothing else that we can offer. And if you're looking to God to get something out of him, you really think he's going to give it? You need to commit, and everything else will be provided. You won't have to worry. You're going to have that sense of fulfillment in your life. You're not going to need to fight your battles on your own because you have Christ, and that's the most important thing. And let me tell you a story about when I first moved to Indiana. So like I said, I'm from Tijuana, so far, far away, and I've been working as an engineering consultant for a while. So I've been traveling, and it was fun. It was nice. I got to see other places, but I always got to travel back home on the weekend. So that was definitely a nice perk. And I was doing this contract in Salt Lake City, and when the tariffs hit the company, they lost a lot of money. So the first people they let go were the consultants. So the 2-year project that we had arranged just was cut off. So I was without a job. And I took a couple months. I was relaxed. I was trying to find a job, but I was being picky. Like, no, I don't like this one. I don't like that one. And a couple months went by, and my bank account was starting to run low. So I need to find something. And I was praying. I was getting interviews. I was getting rejected. An interview, then getting rejected. And I started to feel like I was not enough. Like, oh my God, what's happening? Why can't I get another position? And then I had an interview for a position here in Indiana. I was just 3 months covering for a lady that just had a kid, so she was in maternity. And I interviewed for the place, and I liked them. They were great. But I remember after I had my interview, I prayed, and I asked the Lord, if you want me to go to Indiana, which I didn't even know Indiana existed before that. Hope I don't offend anyone, but I told the Lord, if you want me to go there, let them give me the job. If not, I'll accept it and I'll keep looking wherever you want to send me. And I've always said that doesn't matter where I'm at, as long as I have Christ, I'm going to be okay. And guess what? The next day they called me and they offered me the position. So I moved here, which was a whole mess. It cost me a lot of money to send my car, get all my stuff. I got an apartment off of Facebook in like 2 days. I just, hey, a room available, I'll take it. How much, doesn't matter. I need to move now because I need to start on Monday. And then my car arrived before me, so I had someone I didn't know pick up my car. So, and even she told me that, yeah, you shouldn't do that. I could have stolen it. But I was praying a lot. I was asking the Lord to take care of my car, and if not, the insurance would take the claim. But I made it. First couple weeks, everything was good. I was on my work, like, all right, 3 months. But then it started to hit on me that I'm 2,000 miles away from my family, from my girlfriend, my parents, my brothers, my friends, from everyone. I was really in another city with I don't know anyone, by myself. And the worst thing of it, and I told my girlfriend that I was going to mention this, and she said, don't do that. Don't talk about that story. But the room that I rented, the neighbors downstairs had a really bad bug problem. That's what I'm saying. So they started crawling out to my room, and I couldn't sleep. It was a nightmare. I got attacked by a centipede when I was on the toilet, so that was horrible. But yeah, I would wake up in the middle of the night, look at the walls, trying to see if there was any roach around. I couldn't eat in there, so I had to spend a lot of money on buying food outside because I couldn't. So it was taking a toll on me. And I always thought that I was strong. Said, oh, I've moved around the country. I can do this. It's fine. I lived in different cities, but it hit me, and I was weak. I felt cornered. I felt desperate. I wanted to go back home, but I couldn't. And I did what the Israelites did, just cry to the Lord. And things starting to get better. One day when I think it was the second week when I moved here, I was looking for churches because I like to go to church to whatever city I go to. And I saw this beautiful church. It was amazing. Nice building, a lot of grass. All the people in there looked amazing. They were all they all look super happy, great people. Their pastor was very handsome, amazing. But I decided not to go to Emmanuel Church. I no, it's too commercial for me. But when I was looking, I saw probably 15 churches. And actually, I was thinking of going one that's on the roundabout down the road. But I read Jerry's message on the website for One Christian Church, and it said that we don't water down Scripture. And that the Holy Spirit told me this is the place you need to go. And I did. And when I first came in, I saw there was, I got Halloween candy, and they had some Halloween stuff. And I said, oh my God, why did you send me here? This is not the right place. So I'm not a fan of Halloween. I think that line is very thin. So might as well not play with it. But when I heard Jerry speak, his sermon was amazing. It's just a perspective on something that I've never seen before. And I think it was the 10 plagues and how they all are different Egyptian gods that God just took and mocked all of them with those plagues. So that was amazing. And I said, I'll give it another try. And then I came back, and same, the sermon was amazing. And now I'm here in front of all of you. So this place was great. And on my time of weakness, when I was looking for the Lord, when I was feeling desperate and cornered and felt like I had nothing here, and I just wanted to go back home, but I couldn't. He answered my prayer. He fought that battle for me. And things started to change. I got offered a permanent position, and I get to go back home for a week every month, which that makes a big difference. I moved out of the Rochi apartment, so now I have my own apartment. I can sleep well at night. Just when the tornado sirens go off, I get terrified. But things started to change, and now I can't say. I used to say I didn't know anyone in Indiana, and I was all by myself. But now I have a family in here with all of you. I made a lot of friends, so God definitely has provided. And I'm no one special. So what he did for me, he's going to do for all of you. But we need to seek out for him. If I was rich and I was in that situation, I would have said, I'll just pack my bags and I'll go. I have the money. I can just go. I don't need to be here. But God put me here for a reason. And Jerry has so much to teach me. And I think and I believe that's the reason he sent me here, so I can learn and grow and just put my little grain of sand here trying to help build this place and try to touch all of your guys' lives and just be helpful in whatever way I can. So he sent me here. When I did that prayer, he said, I'm going to send you to Indiana, and it's going to be with a purpose. And it's starting to get clearer and clearer. And it's going to happen for you too. Sometimes things don't make sense, but you need to trust the Lord. And it's okay to be weak. It's okay to be weak because he's going to make us strong. And yeah, I've learned so much about all of you. You're very kind. You're the kindest people I've ever met, honestly. When I first come here, Mark and Becky invited me over to their home, and I was terrified. I thought they were going to kidnap me. Because in Tijuana, we don't tend to invite people just like that. Hey, hi, what's your name? You want to come over for dinner? So I texted my girlfriend, my mom, and my best friend my live location, the address. And I said, if I don't answer in 2 hours, call the cops. But no, they haven't kidnapped me yet, and I've been to their home many times. So they're just nice. They're just wonderful people. So thank you. I appreciate it. But now, in our weakness, like the time that I went through it, I was feeling weak. The Lord is going to glorify it, but we need to put our trust in him. And that's what he says in here. The Lord is my rock, my fortress, and my deliverer. My God is my rock in whom I take refuge. I think I cut off the rest. But it says, my shield and the horn of my salvation, my stronghold. And that's what I learned. I used to say that whenever I was okay just because I knew God was with me. But this time I got to live it. I went through that stage of feeling like God had forgotten about me and I was desperate. But He was with me. And it's the same thing for all of you. Doesn't matter where you're at, doesn't matter what happens in your lives. We have the Lord. And then that's all we really need. So through our own strength, we'll never be able to be strong enough. We're never going to be able to find our purpose. And I don't know if many of you question yourselves that. What am I here to do? What's my purpose? It's just, are we living just for living? Just because that's what our parents did and that's what we're told that we need to do? We need to find that purpose. And the only one that's going to be able to give us that it's the Lord. He's going to help us be a better friend, better husband, better parent. He's going to help us be a better disciple. And we're going to experience that fulfillment because we take all that weight off our shoulders and we give it to Him. But He said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest on me. So, yeah, if you haven't signed up for the men's discipleship, I encourage you to do so. Last group that we had, it was amazing. We all got to open up and be vulnerable, which is something hard that we men don't tend to do, right? But that helped us work on what our weaknesses are and how can we work with the Lord. Pray for one another. So definitely I encourage you guys to join, sign up to the men's fire, to the women's fire. Take advantage because we have so many things and we have so many freedom right now that one day may be gone. I think soon will be gone. There's countries right now where they can't get together to read their Bible. It's forbidden, right? The government won't allow it. But we have the entire freedom to get together whenever we want. We could do it every day if we wanted to. Yet sometimes we think going to golf is more important. We think that a barbecue is more important than coming to church. So take advantage because when the time comes and we try to seek out for the Lord, the resources might not be there. So I encourage you to do so. Now, my next point that we get out of Gideon's story is that God will fight your battles. And this is an amazing, crazy point. In the story, they had these jars and torches and trumpets, and that's what they did. They threw them out, they yelled, they blew their trumpets, and the Midianites started killing each other. We could see it here in Judges 7. When the 300 trumpets sounded, the Lord caused the men throughout the camp to turn on each other with their swords. And not saying the twin tongue twister again, but God put His hand in there. They didn't even have to raise a sword to fight them. They ended up killing each other. So what we need to take out of this is we need to let the Lord fight our battles. And let me ask you a question. When did the battle really begin? Was it when they threw the first jar or they blew the first trumpet? Was it when Gideon got the 30,000 men together or 32,000? No. The real battle began when they cried out to the Lord. Midian so impoverished the Israelites that they cried out to the Lord for help. When the Israelites cried out to the Lord because of Midian, He sent them a prophet who said, this is what the Lord, the God of Israel says, I brought you out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. So this picture is a painting. It's called The Prayer of Gideon. And it's beautiful because that's the moment where the real battle started. The real battle started with a cry out to the Lord, with a prayer. And that's how our battles start. That's how we fight the battles. And actually, I took a picture during the worship because the song that Dina chose, we didn't plan this at all. It says, so when I fight, I'll fight on my knees with my hands lifted high. Oh God, the battle belongs to you. The song that we were singing just fits perfect because it's true. That's where the battle really begins. It begins on our knees. It begins with prayer. The fights that we see here on earth with our eyes, with our flesh, are consequences of something spiritual. But the real battle is in the spiritual realm. And if you don't believe me, the Bible says it. For a struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. So, the physical battles that we see in our world are just a consequence of what's happening in the spirit realm. And we need to be prepared. Some of us are ashamed or embarrassed to pray in front of others, but that's the most powerful tool that we have. That's our weapon. Prayer is our weapon. So we need to use it. We need to feel comfortable praying because we need to do that a lot. If we are having issues, we're having problems financially, at home, with our family, with our friends, with whomever, we're struggling with anything, an addiction, the real battle is with prayer. That's how it starts. And if we let the Lord fight our battles, it's going to be easy. But it requires faith. It's not easy to trust the Lord. And I tell you that because of what I went through. I was feeling desperate, cornered. I was feeling afraid. And I say that I trust the Lord, but in the moment I felt like I was not trusting Him. And if you want to experience miraculous victories like Cinco de Mayo or David and Goliath, of the story of Gideon, we need to stop fighting on our own strength. Because we're human, we're weak. Doesn't matter how tough we think we are, we'll never be strong enough. It's through Christ that we'll get that strength. So we need to depend on Him. And we're living in a time where the enemy's seeking to kill, steal, and destroy. So we can't afford to be lukewarm Christians. We need to be disciples. And that's what Jared's been talking about the last couple months. It's about being a disciple. The world is filled with Christians, but there's not many disciples. So we need to step up. And all of that is in prayer and in faith. So if we need to stop fighting our battles, we need to trust the Lord and have faith. Which leads me to my third point. Real faith is being obedient even when things don't make sense. So sometimes things don't make sense. If I was Gideon and God told me to let 30,000 men go home, I'll question Him, be like, are you crazy? There's so many, we're not even enough. So you're sending us to the slaughterhouse. But Gideon had faith, right? He followed an unconventional plan. All right, well, we're not 30,000 anymore. We're 300, but at least we have the best iron on our swords. Yeah, but God didn't want them to use swords. So no weapons, smaller army, doesn't make any sense. But it's all about faith, and we can see the outcome of that. And Frankie asked me about if I was going to talk about Sparta, like the 300 movie. But this has nothing to do with it. Even though there are only 300, if we think about the Spartans, they had the best military combat techniques. So they were crazy good. And maybe that would have happened if they went out with their swords. They were just very good and skilled. But God said, I'm not letting anyone think that. I want them to know it was me. So no swords. Just to make it unmistakable that it was His hand and not anyone's skill. So we need to have faith even when things don't make sense. And I would say the biggest example of that is Abraham. Abraham was old when he had Isaac, and he loved them so much. And God told him to sacrifice him. That sounds horrible. It sounds like a cruel task to say, well, you didn't believe you could have this child, I'll give it to you. And now that you have it, I want you to kill it. It's like, well, what's going on? Why is God doing this? Is God mean? Evil? Well, that might have seemed for us if we were back then, seeing that live. But we can see what God wanted to do through that sacrifice. He let Abraham stop before he was sacrificing Isaac. And he took a lamb and put it on its place to be sacrificed. But what we can see now in 2026 is that same place, and Jerry spoke about this 3 weeks ago, I think it was during Easter, is that it was prophetic, the prophetic geography of God, that same place where Abraham was going to sacrifice Isaac is in Golgotha, which is the same place that Christ died. So what Abraham was doing was symbolic. It was the sacrifice of a father sacrificing his son. And God did it. God took Jesus to the cross and sacrificed him for all of us and for our sins. So for Abraham, he died not knowing what that meant. He just thought, well, he had faith in the Lord. But if I was him, I would have thought it was a cruel joke. Say, take him, sacrifice him. Well, never mind. That's enough. You showed yourself how much faith you have. But it all makes sense. And that's the same thing in our lives. We're going to go through things that don't make sense. Maybe to me, coming to Indiana didn't make any sense. I didn't know where to put it on a map. And now I love it. So we just need to have faith. And that's the pillar of everything. We need to have faith. So just wanted to close out with saying that those 3 points, we need to put them in our lives, and they're going to change our lives for good. We need to understand that the Lord glorifies through our weaknesses. So it's okay to be weak, but give that to the Lord, and He's going to work on that. He's going to glorify it on that. Then God will fight our battles. So we need to put our battles in front of Him, but we need to pray. All those battles begin with prayer. All those physical battles that we see in the world are consequences of something spiritual. And the third one is that faith, real faith, is being obedient when things don't make sense. We need to have blind faith. If we say that we put our lives to the Lord, but we don't trust Him, then we're not putting our lives to Him, right? We're doubting, we're questioning Him. And His infinite wisdom is better and greater than whatever we can have. Sometimes things like praying for a loved one that is sick, we're praying for them to get better, and God takes them, and we get upset. And we get resentful with the Lord, saying, why do you let him die? I was praying for that person. But maybe we just don't understand the plan that the Lord has. It might have been the best thing. We just don't know. And we're not going to know until we're in His presence. So the best thing we can do is to trust Him and let Him take the wheel. So that's it on my part. We're going to invite Jerry over to the stage. Thank you guys so much.
Yes. Mary, you did a great job. Brothers got a hug. No, that's great. The story of Gideon is amazing. I just reminded that part. Where are you going? I'm reminded of the part where when God, the angel of the Lord, first comes to Gideon, and he says, there you are, my faithful warrior. And Gideon's got to be like, wait, who, me? Because the truth of the matter is the Israelites, because they were being oppressed by the Amalekites and the Midianites so much that they would hide in caves. And even when the Lord comes to Gideon, what is he doing? He's in a wine press, and he's threshing wheat in the wine press. And God comes to him, and the Spirit of the Lord comes to him and says, there you are, my faithful warrior. And Gideon doesn't believe it. He's like, I'm not a warrior. I'm afraid. In fact, if you were with me, why have you let all these things happen to us? But then we realize that they had turned their eyes away from God. In fact, if you read Judges chapter 6, verse 25, it actually says, the altar of your father is Baal. And that Asherah pole that's next to the altar is Asherah. And you need to destroy those and take the wood from the Asherah pole and build an altar. So some of you guys that think, well, it can't be me because, I am the son of my father, so there's generational curses, generational bloodlines. But the truth of the matter is God still picked Gideon when he says, I am the least of my own family. I am the least of the tribe of Manasseh. In fact, my father worships Baal and Asherah. But God does not see your position. He sees your potential. And so even though God himself couldn't see, or not God, even though Gideon himself couldn't see the potential, he knew the position he was in. And so whatever season your life, like Amir was saying, if you're feeling weak, you were actually made strong. Stop with the excuses, because the reality is God does not see the position you're in, or the chapter you're in your life, or the season you're in. What he sees is what's coming. But you have to trust, like Amir was saying. You have to have faith. And don't rely on your own strength. Rely on the strength of the Lord. Because Midianites are coming for you. Amalekites are coming for you. They're coming for me too. But I know that he that is in me is greater than he that is in this world. And I have a sovereign king and a warrior and a God that's going to fight my battles. I need not just to let it happen. So thank you, Amir. I'm going to invite the band up and just want to tell you that it's not easy being up here. It's not. And so I'm glad and I'm proud of you. And you did an amazing, amazing job. Amazing job. Father God, as we